Hello, welcome to episode 135 of the Epic Film Challenge 2, 1001 Movies You Must See Before You Die, 1934's It Happened One Night. And before we get to the film itself, I want to talk about the Oscars, which, I don't like to kind of put too much stock in, but at the same time, I am a big fan of Oscar history, and this is one of only 3 films in the entire history of the Academy Awards to win the Big Five: Best Picture, Best Director, Best Writing, Best Actor, and Best Actress. Robert Riskin won for Best Screenplay, Frank Capra won for Best Director, Best Picture, and Clark Gable won for Best Actor, and Claudette Colbert won for Best Actress. And the other 2 films to have achieved this feat also are One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest and The Silence of the Lambs. So it really is kind of rare for that to happen for the main acting awards and then all the big kind of writing, directing, and Best Picture overall itself. So this film was a surprise hit. Columbia did not have a lot of faith in this film. They really didn't. They didn't even put much money into the advertising. They just didn't think it was going to be that much of a... It wasn't going to make that much of a splash, in terms of, the tickets, it wasn't going to make that much money. And it didn't initially, but then they started filtering it out to kind of the secondary movie houses apparently, and that's when it started to pick up word of mouth, and people were really enjoying it, and that's when it became this huge success, this huge hit, made loads of money, and won all the big Oscars. And it's a really funny film. It's a screwball comedy, I guess you would class it as. Clark Gable plays a newspaper journalist, and he comes into contact with this young girl on a bus from Miami to New York, and she is played by Claudette Colbert, and I forget the characters' names now. I watched it last week, unfortunately, but she has run away from her father, and she's gone off to meet her fiance in New York. And she is a socialite, she very much has a pampered lifestyle, has no concept of kind of a real, working class life, to say the least. But she's run away from home. That's kind of the beginning of the film. She runs away from her father, and so her father sends out the message, get my daughter back. It's in all the papers, this rich man wants his daughter back, and so she's on the run, and she's also, has an eye over her shoulder because people are looking for her. And she runs into Clark Gable on this bus, and as you can expect, the two kind of rub each other the wrong way. They have a very tempestuous kind of back and forth relationship. And what I didn't realize about this film is that it's a road movie, and I love road movies. There's something about it that I just love. I don't know what it is. It's this like train movies. I love train movies. Well, I guess it's kind of the same thing, really. I guess train movies are road movies, but there's no road. It's just a track. I don't know. They're just characters in vehicles for most of the film movies, I guess, is something that really appeals to me. I don't know why. I like the feel of it. Just the gentle rattling of the bus and then hearing the outside. I don't know what it is. There's something sort of comforting about it to me, but also intriguing. The idea that while taking a long journey, so much could happen, really, if you think about it. If you were to talk with other people and interact with them, it could be this whole story just contained within this one ride. I don't know, there's something really cool about it. Not to say, though, that this film takes place in just the bus, because they kind of get out the bus and they have to take other modes of transportation, and they kind of team up because, again, she has no concept of money or anything like that, really, because she's been so pampered for her entire life. So she runs out of money very quickly. In fact, her suitcase gets stolen at a bus stop, so she's kind of screwed, and everyone's looking for her. But this journalist, Clark Gable, he recognizes that she could be kind of the savior of his career, because we kind of learn that he's kind of on the rocks with his job. It's not going very well. But if he can get this scoop of this famous girl who everyone's looking for, and he can kind of tell the story of her running away from home and getting up to New York, and if he can help her along the way, and again have the scoop on it, then he can get something out of her. And for her, he can kind of pay her way and help her out and things like that, where she doesn't know what to do. So they have kind of this forced relationship together to kind of, this partnership to kind of get up to New York and stuff. And I really, really loved the chemistry between the two. Claudette Colbert was great. I loved her performance as this kind of stuffy girl, but there was a fire to her as well, which I guess you always kind of need in these kind of screwball comedies. And Clark Gable, he just has that charisma about him. I don't think I could really see Clark Gable as anything but Rhett Butler from Gone with the Wind. I think most people are the same. But it was fun to see him in this, where it was a little bit more light and a little bit more playful. In fact, a lot more playful than Gone with the Wind. I just loved their back and forth. That was the whole heart of the movie. And you know, Frank Capra, I love his films, and I've only seen a couple of them. But I mean, if this and like It's a Wonderful Life are anything to go by, then I can't wait to see more of his films. I don't know, maybe they're two of his best ones, but I mean, I really love the tone of this, just the vibe of it. You know, even just like secondary characters were really funny to me. There's this great one who tries chatting up the girl on the bus. And Clark Gable steps in and stuff, and there's a really funny kind of exchange that kind of plays into another scene later on, and just I loved all those little bits and pieces, you know. And in fact, Connie came in halfway through me watching this film, and I just thought there was no way I was going to convince her to watch a 30s, you know, romantic comedy. I mean, you know, she will watch silent films even, but there's only so much time I can wait for her to be in the mood for these films. So I just went ahead and watched it, and she caught most of the last half of it, and she's like, wow, this seems like a really good movie. I was like, I know, like, you know, but it just, sometimes you can't predict these things, so she's not going to review the film with me, obviously, but I think it's one she'll enjoy a lot later on. The next one I watch, I'll probably get her to watch it with me as well. It's just really entertaining, really just super entertaining, a lot of fun. You know, great script, although apparently the actors weren't happy with the script, and they had to get the writer to come in and rewrite stuff. So, you know, whatever happened, I just love the dialogue between the two main characters in particular. And I do have big criticism of the film, though, because obviously, you know, spoilers, not really even spoilers, but just, I mean, you can tell, you know, these two are going to start falling in love with each other. There's going to be a spark there. I love the scene where they stay in this hotel, and he puts up kind of a blanket between the two. And in fact, I loved how her perception of him was changing, because there were these scenes where it seemed like he could very easily take advantage of her. But he doesn't, you know, and you can kind of tell that she's registering that. And there's a fantastic scene where the people who are looking for her come dangerously close to finding her. And Clark Gable and Claudette Colbert, they have this fake argument, and they get really angry with each other and stuff, and they kind of manage to kind of make such a ruckus that the people looking for her get distracted, and they don't find her, basically. And as soon as they leave, the argument's finished, they just start laughing at how convincing they've been. And it was such a funny moment, even Connie was cracking up about it. So it's just a very crowd-pleasing film, I think. I can very easily see why this was such a big hit when it came out. There is a big criticism, unfortunately. And it's the ending of the film. I did not like the ending of the film because the last 10, even 15 minutes, you could tell where it was going to end up. You could tell where it was going to go, but they dragged it out far too long for me, because I felt like they were trying to make it seem like what was probably going to happen, oh, it's not going to happen, you know, oh, no, it's, you know, it's going to be, no, it's something different, you know, but you know it's not going to be that something different. It's going to be that ending. And so it just dragged out a bit too long for me. Like, there's a great build-up to it, and then it fell a little flat for me. When the rest of the film was so great, I was kind of disappointed in how it ended up playing out. But I wouldn't hold it against it too much. But I do think that if the ending had been as strong as the rest of the film, it would be like a 10 out of 10, 5 out of 5 film for me. As it stands, it's more like a 4.5 out of 5, 9 out of 10, you know. Just great film, but I just didn't have that final... I felt like there was more that could have been done at the end there, or even less and more, if that makes sense. I'll talk about it a little bit more at the end. I'll do a little bit of a spoiler talk to kind of get into it. But is it a film you should see before you die? For me, absolutely. Just a lot of fun, and it's got to be one of the all-time great romantic comedies, I think. I mean, they call it a screwball comedy, which you can see why they call it that, because of the things that happen in the film. But you know, this is kind of, you know, the early romantic comedy style of filmmaking, and I think that it's one of the best ones that I've seen. Really enjoyed it, and definitely would say it's a film you should see before you die, because I do think romantic comedies are just as valid as any other genre, and this is one of the best ones I've seen. So, spoiler talk. At the end of the film, obviously they fall in love with each other, and he has a big plan to go off to New York to kind of get some money so he can marry her and propose and stuff. And as he's coming back, she's woken up and seen that he's left. She thinks that he's left her, so she goes off to meet her fiance and to kind of, you know, go marry someone else. And they cross paths along the way, and it's like, oh, there's going to be a big kind of scene where he stops and confesses his love for her, and that would have been fine and great. But he misses her, and she goes off. And then he kind of is like, oh, well, I failed. And it's like, oh, you know, and then obviously it's building up to kind of him kind of redeeming himself or explaining to her what happened. He goes and meets her father, and her father kind of starts to put the pieces together that he's probably a better kind of choice for his daughter. And I like that. I like that thing with the father where he really kind of decided to see what the best interest was in, you know, his daughter's life. But you know where it's going, and you know that she's not going to marry the guy, and she's going to go off, and that's what happened, right? So it dragged that whole thing out far too long for me. And then the final scene of the film, I wanted to see those two characters together again on screen, and we don't see that. We don't see them reunited at all. The last time we see them together is like 15 minutes before the end of the film, you know, when they go to bed, you know, and he goes off to kind of get the money to propose for it, and it's frustrating because the final scene of the film is a long shot of a house, and you hear them inside, and it just alludes to the fact that they're sleeping together. Like, it just, I didn't like that very much. I mean, it was a funny gag, but it just wasn't a great ending. I wanted to see them on screen together, and if not just having him explain everything, or at least just have a funny little exchange. I mean, they were going for a funny moment to end the film, but it just felt a bit like, oh, and they slept together, da da da, like, I don't know. Wasn't a fan of the ending, unfortunately, but I did love the film. Let me know your thoughts on it down below, and obviously if you're listening to this part of the video, you've seen the film, or you don't care. If you have seen the film, what are your thoughts on the ending? I don't think it's a bad ending, or, you know, a terrible ending. I mean, it was done well. It just dragged out a bit too much when I kind of knew that they were going to end up together at the end anyway. But I wanted more out of their kind of reunion at the end, you know, and there wasn't really much there. It was just a sex joke, and it was like, oh, okay, you know, and it just didn't match up with how good the rest of the film was. But I still think it's a great film. So there we go. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.